was a right to the body and an uppercut to the head, and Berbick is down. It's over. That's all, and we have a new era in boxing.
November 1986. With that knockout, Mike Tyson began his ascent to transcend boxing and become a pop culture phenomenon. At 20 years old, he was the youngest heavyweight champion in boxing history. November 2024. Nearly 2 decades after his last pro fight, Mike Tyson steps in the ring again to fight a polarizing personality more than 30 years younger. This time, Tyson is 58, and the questions run far deeper than simply who will win.
Dr. Faisal, to many people, I think a 58-year-old fighting sounds unsafe. Is it unsafe?
Certainly, I have my reservations. By the time you're 58 years old, your body's changed. Its morphology has changed. Your reflexes are slower. And certainly at that kind of extreme age, which I would consider an extreme age for combat sports, we all should be a bit concerned.
That is Dr. Faisal Rahman. In addition to his work as a kidney specialist and professor of medicine at Western University, Dr. Faisal has also worked as a ringside doctor for the UFC.
What are some of the specific changes that happen in our bodies, as we age, particularly that could affect a fighter?
So number one would be just your ability to have that rapid reflex, those rapid movements that you need to get out of the way of a punch. And your ability to take a punch changes, in my opinion. Your ability to withstand a hard shot to the brain is also something that I think is compromised over time.
If age stacks the deck against a fighter, perhaps even compromising health, what drives this phenomenon of once great champions trying to fight later in life? Dr. David Klonsky, psychology professor at UBC.
For a fighter, confidence, ego even, can be a really strong thing, a really important thing. Is that partly why maybe they believe they can continue to fight even later?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, you're right. If you're a fighter, you have to be confident enough to go in a situation where everything can go wrong. Your livelihood can go wrong. How you look in front of everyone can go wrong. You can get seriously physically hurt, and something in you has to be confident enough to go through that. We have the ability to delude ourselves, to make ourselves think, yes, I can't do this as a career anymore. But with the right rehab and then the right training camp and then maybe the right combination of vitamins and the right coaching and game plan, I can be the fighter I was one more time.
Few people understand just how strong an older fighter's power of belief can be, better than former UFC champion Chuck Liddell. I caught up with him mid-haircut, and he explained some of the challenges he faced as an older fighter.
It just became more timing, and it's more time recovering, more time, training smarter, not harder. The hard thing for me at the end was I just couldn't change that. The way my ability to take a punch had decreased.
What do you think it is about fighting specifically why we just feel like we want to do it always? It's hard to quit.
I mean, I love fighting. I love being out there. I love every part of it. I like getting ready for a fight. I like training. I like cutting weight because I knew I was going to fight the next day. And I got paid a lot of money to do it. And on top of that, so I got paid a lot of money to do what I love. So how are you going to beat that?
When you hear it summarized that simply, it makes sense. A passion for the work, extravagant rewards. These things are hard to walk away from, especially given that today's athlete, in their 50s, is vastly more fit than a 50-year-old was even 20 years ago.
When you see those small spurts of him training and hitting the bag, don't get me wrong, he looks very explosive hitting the bag or hitting the pads. But you're seeing like a few seconds of a burst. How is his stamina? It's tough to assess at 58.
In the event that Mike Tyson were to get knocked out, is the effect of a knockout on a 58-year-old brain different or worse than if you get knocked out in your 20s?
Yeah, and I think as you know, any knockout is a trauma to the brain and is causing brain damage. And certainly as you get older, your ability to withstand that type of damage is less. As we get older, our brain does shrink a little bit, and there's more space between the skull and the brain. And you could argue there's more space for bleeding and swelling. When you have any trauma to the brain in a motor vehicle accident or from a punch, the brain is moving back and forth in the skull and is being injured on both sides. That risk substantially goes up as you get older because of that increasing space between the brain and the skull.
Whether it's nostalgia or an unwavering belief that we're never too old, people see Tyson's training videos and marvel over the amazing shape he's in. We convince ourselves of mantras like, age is just a number, and perhaps that will come to fruition, and Tyson will indeed turn back the clock. But in the end, speak to a doctor, one who is immersed in the combat sports world, and the science paints a different picture.
You might argue that now he's living a cleaner life and he's trying to treat his body better, and he's had some time off, but he's old. He's old and he hasn't fought in a long time, and he's fighting a real lion, a very good fighter with good skills, who's young and strong. And so I'm worried for him, to be honest with you. And I mean, if you're asking me to predict who will win the fight, I think that Paul will win that fight easily.